All right, welcome to the City of Green Bay Personnel Committee meeting. The time is just past 4:30. We'll start with roll call. Alder Grant.
Present.
Alder Hinkfuss.
Here.
Alder Johnson.
Here.
I'll entertain a motion on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Entertain a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. On the regular business, under E, item 1, for consideration with possible action on a request to fill the following positions and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers.
Take one at a time.
We can take them all at once.
Yeah.
Okay, with that?
Yeah.
I want to pull E.
Okay.
So I make a motion to approve
Oh, that's
1A through D.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we're considering the A, B, C, and D, which is account clerk 2, truck driver, administrative clerk, and city sealer.
I'm sorry, was my motion to suspend the rules and not the motion to approve?
There you go. Yep.
All right. So we just approved the motion to suspend the rules. Now I want to make a motion to approve 1A through E.
All right.
Second.
All those in
Sorry,
favor?
1A through D.
D. Okay. You got that, Melanie?
I got it.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Entertain a motion?
Well, motion to approve. I mean, if you want a motion on the floor, yeah.
Second.
All those in favor?
Well, hold up. What are you doing?
I was gonna say, what do we?
Do you want to approve
Discussion.
those four?
We already did. We just did.
Okay, I knew that.
Now we're
I'm like,
I'm sorry. On the item E, Public Arts Coordinator.
Matt? Okay. Obviously, Matt saw this position became vacant. You know, one of the things, and obviously, like, I was a huge advocate of creating this position, of expanding this position, of creating the Public Arts Commission. I served on it. You know where I stand on public arts, but what I really want to understand is kind of what this role is doing day to day, right? The funding that's going into this role, and really wanting to understand if we're getting, you know, the highest and best use out of this investment into a position, right? Versus taking that funding that in theory could go towards the actual art or artists. So I just want to at least engage in a proactive dialogue right around this and get your take from a staff level. If you could give us a little bit more insight into maybe how this position has functioned, but also how you see it functioning into the future, so that we can ensure, right, that we're really getting the outcome, I think, that ultimately that, you know, we want to see for this role.
Sure. So as I have here in the memo, the Public Arts Coordinator, the primary roles are managing our public art programs. We've got our rotating art program, of course. We have several grants that we provide to artists to get projects out in the community. With our 1% for the art program that we fund through TIF dollars. There's a lot of coordination with developers, businesses, and artists to funnel dollars through our programs and get art projects out in the community. This is physical art pieces, sculptures, murals. It's also performances, putting art in our parks departments as well. The position also applies for a lot of grant dollars. The murals underneath the shipyard viaduct, for instance, Mason Street Bridge, that was a project funded primarily with federal dollars through the National Endowment for the Arts. So they go out and seek other dollars to fund projects rather than just using our own local sources.
And I appreciate that. And the funding source for this role, I'm trying to recall, we did something around the percent for the art. Did we roll over some of that funding for this position?
We did. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but a significant percentage of the position is funded by that percent for the art.
Right, and I believe in the
Next
past it was
few
mostly
years.
block grant, is that
Block
right?
grant,
And
yes.
so the block grant's totally off of this funding, or
No, I think
partially?
it's still partially
Still
funded.
75-25?
Sounds about right.
thought we just changed this either this last May or last spring. I thought we kind of redid those distributions.
This minute, we can look it up.
Yeah, and maybe you could just get that data for the full council meeting. I think that'd be helpful, and you can just send it to me, unless anybody else here wants it, but,
Sorry, Cheryl will probably know off the top of her head. She's out sick today, so.
no, that's fine. And usually I email you guys ahead of time. Admittedly, I was reading the packet right before I came, so. But and so when you think about, I guess, a budget that this position has right now for actual projects, do you have a sense of what that is and sources?
Off the top of my head, no, but we could get that for council.
Okay.
And it does vary from year to year depending on development agreements. Now that we've got that 1% for the yard, that is going up. And like I said, when we do secure additional outside grants, we have some additional dollars coming in. So it does vary, but we can probably provide better information at council.
Okay, and then when you think sort of again about the ideal skill set of this person, I want to say, Matt, maybe you and I were talking about this early on, right before we even hired the first one, about maybe it wasn't you, and forgive me if it wasn't, but just, what we want this individual to do. And of course, it helps to have someone who's got knowledge and expertise around the arts, but sometimes if the responsibilities of the position end up becoming more administrative or more grant writing or more fiscal management, sometimes those talents aren't in alignment.
Yeah.
And so do you have a sense of what you're looking for out of this role?
I think it is important to have somebody that does have an understanding of the arts and artists and how they work, to be able to just manage those relationships and also to help support our creative economy here locally. That's something that this position didn't do a lot of in the past, but there's been some conversations of how this position could work with businesses in the community, work with, being an artist, you are a small business, you're an entrepreneur. And so there are things that this position could be doing in the future to better support our creative economy, support our economic development, our tourism. So we could be doing a little bit more there. If that answers your question.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's just, a lot of times you put individuals into positions and they kind of shape those positions based on, where their talents are. And obviously the prior public arts coordinator was our first hire in this role. And so, for me, before it was just recognizing that I do value this program and I really want to see the greatest impact possible, I just didn't want to knee-jerk react and say, hey, does the second iteration of this look the same? Or is there, growth to be had here, where we're being proactive about conversations around things that we've learned and maybe things that we would want to see that are different than what we had, from the prior position. So that's really kind of what I just.
Sure. What I can say, in the first few years that we've had this position created, I think we've been incredibly successful with it. Looking at the number of pieces of art that have been put up into the community, just look around. My goodness, Broadway District is a great example. We have done so much for public art in this community, and a huge part of that is this position. So I think we've been incredibly successful. I think we can continue to grow it. And we'd be very open to having additional conversation with you or others, other arts groups in the community with what we can do with this role to make it even better. Yeah.
Okay, and I just want to be clear, none of this line of questioning is really meant to be like a judgment on the role so much as it was an understanding, right, of where it's going into the future.
Great.
So, and really, I think also the opportunity to, emphasize that it is that percent for the art program that's, funding the bulk of the expense of the program. It's not, right, like this entire position is not funded off of levy dollars, and that's oftentimes, the other big question that we might get as a body. So I think it's always good to provide that clarity. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a quick one. Any
parts of this role, is that anything that the Public Arts Commission can take over if we wanted to apply these funds to art specifically? Is that anything that the commission could take over?
I really don't think so, to be honest with you. I've only had to cover for this position for a couple weeks since not having one, and things are not happening. We've got grants out there already. People have secured grants through us, and they're requesting reimbursement. We need to get back to them. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we really do need a dedicated person to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it was, 4 or 5 years ago, the RDA required developers to put 1% of the investment into public arts, and a lot of those are coming to fruition, so I can't believe that this person would be busy. And when you talk about skill set, operational skill sets are really important too when you're doing installations and things like that.
I would make a motion to approve and then add that contingency that staff's going to follow up with some of those number breakdowns.
Okay. We have a motion to approve with staff providing some information later on. Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. On to item, I just shut down my computer by accident.
Here you go.
On item number 2, for consideration with possible action to overhire 2 firefighter positions. Any questions for staff?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Item 3, for consideration with possible action to create a limited term grant account position to replace the limited term grant administrator internal auditor position, and request to fill the grant accountant position and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers.
To see Diana?
I definitely can start it, and then also our assistant finance director can also step in. As you know, we had a position that was brought on to help manage our ARPA grant on the administration side. Coordination of meetings, the allocation, some reporting. That was started in, 3.5, almost, going on 4 years ago. And so the coordination piece is kind of done, and now we have a lot of accounting, the journal entries, the reconciliations, the reports that have to be submitted to the federal government. This position has also taken on quite a few other additional grants that a lot of them are ARPA funded. And again, the position before, the person was really coordinating and overseeing and managing the funds, the allocation. But now we really have a stronger need to really close out these, do the journal entries, do the financial end of it. And so, as one position, the coordinator position is ending, we really need to bring an accountant in. So at this point, we have funding through 2026 that is guaranteed through the ARPA funds. And then we would be looking to see if there's any administrative dollars that potentially could be used from future grants that maybe could help fund this position more long-term. Otherwise, we might be back 2 years from now as we, go into a budget year. But at this point, we would have funding through 26, maybe more dollars. And so that is our goal, to have someone that can, finalize and take these grants to the end and keep them clean in our ledger. Anything else that anything you can think of?
Just that this position would be, have an educational background of accountant or in the finance area, and really a focus on GAAP and GASB reporting and compliance for the CFA and the CSA. That has become quite a large project at year end.
Which is really part of our audit.
That's correct.
So I remember when this position first came through, and I remember I was the one that added the LTE condition on this, because we do this often, right? We create roles and they become permanent even when they're not always necessarily need to be permanent. And so you know, so this is obviously now a request to take this LTE role, make it permanent. Is, do you, I mean, I understand it's a different scope of responsibility. Is this position, though, something that you would need to, like, is the individual kind of moving into this role, or is this a new post?
This is a new post.
Okay.
But it's limited term?
It is limited term at this point because we have a funding that goes through the end of '26 at this point. It's a 2-year term, 2-year position. But yes, we would fully, I will talk to the HR director, but for sure, it will be posted and be looking for new personnel.
We did it LTE because it was initially hired and created to to manage the ARPA funds.
Yep,
Right,
and
so
that makes
so the
sense.
idea was when ARPA expired then, right, the staff would have to come back and make the case if a different type of position were needed. And I do appreciate that you brought in the data, right, which was the number of grants have increased. As someone who manages grants, I understand grant management is very time intensive. And so I can appreciate that as well. I'm sure Matt would welcome some assistance with the art grants there. You know, so I appreciate kind of what, you know, the case that you're laying out here. The intent is, though, and I just want to understand, right, so we've got this LTE role that's there. The funding source for that is ARPA, and you're intending to use that ARPA source for this new role?
Correct, yep, and that was the intention that we have enough administrative dollars that are set aside that will pay for this position into the end of '26 or into the early '27. Our last reporting for ARPA will be probably March of 2027, because we have, the dollars have to be spent by end of '26, and then you're gonna have the last quarter, the last report that is gonna be due. So there is enough administrative dollars set aside to take this position through probably first quarter of '27.
Okay, and then would this role get involved on TIF districts at all?
That is, it's possible. At this point, there are quite a few other ARPA grants, including the JBS has a $5 million ARPA pass-through grant. It is also overseeing the Medical College of Wisconsin, the $1 million grant that is in 2025. It's also working on a energy grant, and so this position has been involved in, again, on the front end, the coordination, but we really need someone who can help do the accounting side of it and
Sure.
make sure that at audit time that they can, submit and fill out the information that's requested by our auditors.
Okay, and I know a lot of grants will allow you to withhold personnel time and staff time, and we just had that item back here recently. You know, but when we have a grant that is for a different department, let's say police, fire, but this individual is the one that's doing the accounting work potentially. What I'm getting at with all of this, right, is we do the percentage withholding on TIF districts for administrative fees. If grants can pull in some funding, you've got ARPA in the short term. I understand like it's got to be a levy commitment to create the position, but it sure would be nice if levy dollars didn't have to be the thing to fund this, and that we would have the ability, even if it's cross-departmental, right, to pull from some of those grants to be the primary source of funding for this role.
Yeah, and like I said, I know we have funding probably to the first quarter of 2027. And again, we had talked about, and because of that recent change to our grant policy, that we assume that could be, or we were hoping that maybe is another funding source if there isn't another one that comes up along the way to help fund this position. I mean, somewhere between now and then, and we find a way to obligate it or use operational dollars and use levy, we would, but at this point, we would certainly see if we can, like you said, tap into some administrative portions of grants going forward.
Okay, thank you.
And I give you credit because you had the LTE, and now you're at a different phase in it, and you need the accountant that can go in and do the ledgers, so when it comes to audit time, it all makes sense. So, I definitely support it.
I'll entertain a motion if there's no other questions.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Item 4 for consideration with possible action to reclassify a word processor position to a public records specialist position and approval to fill the public records specialist position and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers.
There's a marginal increase. I assume this is just absorbed in their normal staffing budget?
So, and I think this has been a process that's been going on for quite a few years, right, with these reclasses. So I think this is probably the last position to be reclassed into a.
Yeah, because we had this one a couple months ago.
Right, but it's $1,000 more than what we would have budgeted, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
just wanting to clarify, this isn't a contingency request, this is just coming through normal budget.
I believe so.
Okay. Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. We have informational report of personal actions, and our next meeting is January 28th, 2025.
To adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.